I got a new mic. When I first heard that the new light weapon coming out in Season 6 of the finals was an assault rifle that was apparently zippy, my first thought was, so how is this gonna compare to the M11? Since its release, the gun hasn't really seemed to have resonated with the general player base. It has already gotten 2 buffs, one to its damage and another to its reload, meaning that the devs think that's underperforming and they're trying to give it some love. And today, I want to ask why the ARN is in its current situation and how it actually compares to the other light automatics. But before that, if you like this video and you want to support the channel, subscribing is the best way to do so. We are getting really close to that 200 subscriber mark, and I really appreciate every single one of you who are helping make this dream become a reality. But now, back to the video. So to start off, let's take a look at the ARN's main competitors on light, the M11 and XP54. The M11 is technically a machine pistol, but I like to call it an SMG, and the XP54 is an SMG as well, while the ARN is an assault rifle, which seems like they should be really different, but if you've played with these three weapons, you know just how similar they are. Before we get into range and weapon feel, let's take a look at what these guns can actually put out. Starting with damage, on light, the M11 can get a kill with 5 crit shots and 2 body shots. It can kill a medium in 10 crit shots and 1 body shot. And finally, it can kill a heavy with 14 crit shots and 1 body shot. Hi, so this is me from the future. There was an update that was made while I was editing this that just drastically changes a lot of what I say in the video. So the XP54 got a damage nerf with a with a fire rate buff. It changes the damage numbers and it changes the TTK values that I got for the weapon. So I'm going to redo the voiceover with the correct numbers. And when I say that the XP54 has the same damage as the ARN, that is no longer true, but it is what I said during the recording. I have not tested the actual damage stat itself, but the numbers like crits and bodies to kill is now the same as the M11. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled program. Hi, me from the future telling you about the XP54 now. So it will kill a light in 5 crits and 2 body shots, it will kill a medium in 10 crits and 1 body shot, and it will kill a heavy in 14 crits and 1 body shot. The ARN kills a light in just 6 crit shots, killing a medium in 10 crit shots, and finally killing a heavy in 14 crit shots. Keep in mind that the ARN got a damage buff shortly after launch, meaning that the devs originally wanted the ARN's damage to fall somewhere between the M11 and XP54. But after we talk about TTK, or time to kill, you might understand why they wanted to buff it. This is my first time doing TTKs on this channel, so I'm going to go over how I'm getting my TTK values, and since it's my first time using this method, it is subject to change in later videos. What I'm doing is basically setting everything on my computer from the game to OBS to my editing software to 60 frames per second. I then kill a test dummy with only crits and count how many frames it took to get that kill. I then take the amount of frames and divide it by 60 frames per second to get my TTK value. I start at the frame before I see any weapon plume and then end on the frame after the last hit marker, which is that X here. This means that my TTKs are most likely going to seem a bit long, but they are all going to be consistently long. With that out of the way, on M11, I got a TTK of 0.68 seconds on light, a TTK of 0.93 seconds on medium, and a TTK of 1.18 seconds on heavy. Hi, me from the future again, telling you about the TTK values I got for the XP54. So on light, I got a TTK of 0.85 seconds, on medium, I got a TTK of 1.15 seconds, and on heavy, I got a TTK of 1.37 seconds. The ARN, even though it has the same damage as the XP54, has a slower TTK. On light, the ARN has a TTK of 0.78 seconds, a TTK of 1.1 seconds on medium, and a TTK of 1.4 seconds on heavy. This difference in TTK can be attributed to the gun's fire rates. The M11 obviously has the highest fire rate, with the XP54 having the second highest fire rate, and the ARN having the lowest fire rate. This doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at how automatics are balanced in this game. Now, I'm going to go over what might seem like a basic concept, but it is important for why the ARN is the way that it is. So there's this commonality between light, medium, and heavy autos, minus the minigun. It might still be true, but I'm not going to cover it. And that is a correlation between recoil, damage, and fire rate. Now, what do I mean by this? When it comes to comparing autos by class, you see a trend where weapons that tend to have a higher fire rate and better recoil have worse damage, and guns with high damage seem to fire slower and have worse recoil. So for example, on medium, the AK has a higher fire rate and better recoil than the FCAR, but the FCAR has better damage. The M60 on heavy has low damage, but a higher fire rate and better recoil than the Shack. Well, the Shack has higher damage, and the Lewis gun kind of works as this happy medium with fire rate, recoil, and damage in between the Shack and M60. The general idea behind this is to add a risk-reward factor with these weapons. If you want to get the great damage from the FCAR or the Shack, then you have to deal with the recoil of the weapon. You also fire the gun more slowly, meaning that you have to make each shot count a little bit more than the AK or especially the M60. I believe that the ARN was intended to be one of these slow-hitting, high-damage weapons. It has the slowest fire rate, and though I haven't talked about this yet, the worst recoil. Now, to be fair, saying that a gun has worse recoil than an M11 is not saying a lot. It's like if the bar was set 10 feet under the ground, but still, it's worse even compared to the XP54, at least in my opinion. The main issue here, though, is that its damage doesn't make the risk worth the reward. I think this is why they buff the damage over anything else. They want to add that risk-reward factor over, let's say, a recoil buff or a fire rate buff, and I actually think that was the best way to buff the gun. Let me tell you a little story here. The XP54, eons ago, had some great damage with a low fire rate. Now, was this damage a bit too high? Maybe. Which is why the devs nerfed the damage of the gun, which made it almost unplayable. So, they then increased its fire rate to account for the loss in damage. I was not a fan of this decision at the time, because it made the gun feel less distinct from the M11, making it kind of a worse version of the gun that already existed. Nowadays, I have the same feeling about the XP54, and I also have a similar feeling about the ARN. I feel like if they wanted to make the gun feel more distinct from the M11 and make it its own thing, then increase the damage. Not by too much, but just enough to close in the TTK values, to add in a very good risk-reward factor to the gun. You could even, listen, this is just an example here. You could even heavily buff the damage and nerf the fire rate while still maintaining a net buff. But I feel like that big of a change might piss some people off, and I'm not 100% on that myself. Just letting you know that I'm not like endorsing this idea. I just came up with it. Now, there's two other factors about these guns that you've probably been yelling at me for, I'm guessing, about 6 to 8 minutes maybe, depends how I edit this. But don't worry, we'll cover them right now. Starting with range. Yes, the ARN has some really, and I mean really good range. There's some kills that I've gotten with this weapon that I don't even know like how I managed to do it. The M11 is great for its effective range, but going outside that range turns the gun into an unruly pool noodle. Noticing a lack of damage fall off and maintaining good accuracy from farther away is probably the best compliment I can give to the gun. Where it fails in other places, this is where it really shines, and it's probably the best selling point for this gun over its competitors. Now, moving on to our second thing, the reload. Yes, the reload is supposedly the main gimmick of the gun. Instead of getting one mag, you get two, each with 30 shots. When you drain the first mag, the second one is quickly exchanged into your gun. After you drain that mag, you do the longest reload out of the 3 main guns. So when your entire 2 mags are drained, that's what I'm talking about. Now, will you be using this reload a lot? If you're like me, you probably don't interact with this mechanic all that much. Most of the time, I reload manually before draining the 30 shots in the first mag because I mainly do hit and run tactics on light, meaning that I'm not in the fray for that long. Would I prefer to have just a mag of 60? Yes, absolutely. But it does make sense that they'd add in this interruption between your mag for balance reasons, much like the SA-1216 in a way with its mini reloads in between shots. Though, I would still prefer just a guaranteed semi-quick reload on the M11, even if it's not as quick as the mag switch on the ARN. I would recommend that you at least try this gun out to see if you like it. Its differences in TTK, damage, and fire rate really just mean nothing if you love playing with the gun. What you can take from this video is the data and my personal opinion, which is that I like the M11 just a bit more, but not a lot more. I see a lot of potential in this gun, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the meta. But what do you think? Do you think the gun is good, bad, or somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments section down below. And if you like the video and want to support the channel, subscribing is the best way to do so. Thank you all for watching. See you later.